Okay, awesome. So for folks who are new here, uh, what we do here is basically every 2 weeks, we ask people if there are any KEPs that they're interested in discussing. And whatever KEPs are of interest, we take around 10 minutes per KEP. So we take 2 KEPs per session. Um, we take around 10 minutes reading it, and then post that discussing it. So in terms of maybe um, questions or feedback or anything of that sort, or if the author is on the call, if they want feedback, they can ask for specific feedback as well. So that's the whole point of it. And like, this is just to familiarize ourselves with like the whole KEP process. And I'm saying KEP a lot. For folks who are not familiar, KEP stands for Kubernetes Enhancement Proposals. It's like a detailed document if you want to add, update, or deprecate features in Kubernetes, that you have to go through that process. So that's what we're trying to familiarize ourselves with. We have one kept on the agenda, which is kubectl sub-resource. I think the author is on the call. Hi, Yuvraj. Thanks for joining. Um, so let's take 10 minutes and read that, like go through the KEP. We can extend it because we have this one KEP today. So I'll start a timer for 10 minutes and we can get started. All right, starting the timer in 3, 2, and 1. Let's start. Okay, I think that's 10 minutes, so it's totally okay. Like if someone wants to like extend it by 5 more minutes. So do folks need extensions? Like some amount, or should we start discussion? Okay, I'm guessing that's a no, so we can probably start. So do folks have questions right off the bat? All right, so I have a question. So is there like any difference in the way in like the implementation of kubectl scale and kubectl patch hyphen sub resource scale?
So scale necessarily updates the scale sub resource rate. Patch is up to you. You can actually send in any patch object to update the underlying object. And in this case, as far as this particular sub KEP goes, the sub resource at that point, adding the sub resource flag at that point sends a patch on the sub resource object, on the scale sub resource
Okay.
object. So
Okay.
that's how they operate.
Correct. So I'm guessing this will be alpha in 123 now.
Yes. So that's the timeline for it. So this will be alpha in 123, and one of the things that you probably would have observed is kubectl apply doesn't support sub-resource yet, right? Because kubectl apply is a very tricky command to deal with because of client-side apply and the last applied annotation and so on. So initially, it's only going to be get, edit, patch, and replace. And once we collect user feedback on what else needs to be added, what changes do we want to see, or if this is okay with the way it is, we'll also start. That will be addressed in like the next cycle. Besides that, we'll also look into what is the best way we can work out supporting sub-resource with the apply command as well.
Okay, awesome. So is there a plan, or does it make sense to have other sub resources, like for example port or logs? So yeah,
I believe logs are not. I mean, so initially, this KEP is not going to work with other sub resources. It's going to focus only on status and scale, because like edit and patch on logs does not make a lot of sense. We only make the get, and we have get for that. It doesn't make sense to get sub resource get logs of sub resource status, because that's not a thing, right?
okay.
So there are other sub resources, but the initial focus is going to be just status and scale, because those are the two that will be most used during like a dev cycle of someone writing a reconcile loop or something.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So moving to like, for example, so this is planned for alpha in 123. So typically, this is just like a general question, not related to the KEP. So typically, how many cycles does it take to move from alpha to beta, like considering the previous cadence, because we don't really have too much experience with the new one? Or is there like a fixed number of cycles typically, or that depends?
I think, and Eddie can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there is a fixed number of cycles. It depends from KEP to KEP on what feedback need to be addressed and what features need to be added. But I would assume, at least for this KEP, it's going to be one cycle per iteration, right? So alpha to beta is one, beta to gamma, beta to GA is one, and so on.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've actually had a couple KEPs skip beta and just go right from alpha to GA because they were super stable. Thank you for joining us, Yuvraj. We reviewed this KEP, so this one's very familiar to me. I'm very excited for
Yes.
it to get implemented in 123.
Yeah, so we broke down the original PR into two different ones, one to change the API server and one to change the client side. There's still some feedback that I need to address on the API server change, but once that's merged, we can get the client side PR merged, and then we'll have it ready in 123.
Awesome.
So moving to like the work for beta, right? So other than user feedback, is there like basically what work needs to be done, or is work planned out as such?
So one is the apply command, like basically adding sub-resource support for the apply command, but it still needs some more time to look into what needs to be done for the apply command to work because of both the client side apply and server apply, and if it even warrants like its own separate KEP to figure out how to work sub-resources into apply command, right? So for the initial alpha phase, it's just going to be the other commands, the get, edit, patch, and replace. And for beta, the primary focus is going to be collect user feedback and see if there are any other items that need to be addressed. But as I mentioned, in parallel, apply command is something that we'll be looking at.
So just like a general question, like I hear this a lot, right? Like collecting user feedback, getting what the community feels about it. So how is it usually done? So is it done via people submitting their feedback out of their own volition on like KK, for example, or is there like a survey of sorts that goes out for any particular feature, or a release in general? So like, how does that work?
I would assume it is by tracking issues that come up with respect to this particular feature set on KK repo, right? And then figuring out, okay, people have problems with this particular thing and so on.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so I don't have any more questions. So does anyone have more questions on this KEP in particular?
Actually, I do have a question. So this is my first time here, KEP Reading Club. So I want to build upon the initial question that Madhav asked. So I just want to know the primary value addition or the difference that the kubectl scale command and the sub resource when we do use the sub resource flag.
Yeah, definitely. So the scale command is very specific for that one use case, but the patch combined with the sub-resource flag is for a general use case, right? You can use it even to like update status sub-resource, or in this case, you can also use it to update the scale sub-resource. So the end result of using a kubectl scale and kubectl patch with sub-resource scale is probably the same, but the way they do it is different. And patch with sub-resource is a more generic option that can be used for other sub-resources, whereas the scale command is just for scale.
Okay, so basically the scale commands comes handy in case of when we have deployment or those type of resources, and sort of this is more this takes a more generic approach here.
Yes, yeah. So the sub-resource support in general is aimed towards people writing like their own controllers and reconcilers and wanting like a quick test dev cycle to be able to like quickly just change the status to something else and see how it acts, or change the scale to something else and see how it acts and so on. So that's the focus. So that's the focus that's the set of people we are trying to, this KEP will try to address and help. But the scale command is more like publicly available to the general audience of Kubernetes who want to interact with like deployments and so on, and scale up, scale down and stuff. So to better answer your question, I don't expect people to use like patch with sub-resource scale to like scale up or scale down deployments. It's going to be through the scale command, but the sub-resource flag is going to be more towards like testing other things and then figuring out how that works, and maybe like changing these observed replicas on the scale object instead of the desired replicas on the scale object to see how the reconciler would then act and so on.
Okay. One more thing, not related to this cap, but can I get to know what all are the sub resources? There's a list somewhere, or it's maintained somewhere that what all are the sub resources that are available.
To be honest, I don't know the full list of all the sub-resources available and all the resources, but a good way to figure out what all are available is once you have a cluster, you can do like kubectl API resources, and that I think spits out a bunch of resources that are available, which should also list down if there are any sub-resources, I believe.
Thank you, Madhav, for your links. Thank you very much. I guess that clears all my doubts.
Awesome.
Okay, so any more questions related to the KEP? I'll take that as a no. So I think we can like move on, taking a look at maybe the enhancement tracking sheet of what's going on in 123 till now, and see how things are going. So that I think we can like share screen, and for this, let me share the screen. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yep.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Okay, so I think till now we have around 10 KEPs that have been opted in. Most of them are from auth and storage. I think Node plans to update their opt-in KEPs by this week or early next week probably, because for the past 2.5 weeks they've been discussing what KEPs they want to work on, or like what KEPs are optimal in for this particular release cycle. And there were quite a few KEPs from Node this time as well. So this list should be much more fleshed out, I think, by next week at least. I think there's like a soft PRR deadline this time, right? So wait, today, I think in the next 4 days is the PRR deadline for KEPs. So folks will probably be getting their KEPs in here now soon. So there's already a lot from storage this time around. So storage might be interesting. So we can probably like take a look at a few of them in the next meeting. So if anyone here would like to is interested in like any of these KEPs, please either reach out or like add it in the agenda doc. But another thing is that, so one more thing I wanted to discuss was maybe we can start doing like something other than as in something in addition to what we are currently doing, that is like reading KEPs and discussing them. That is, can we maybe pick up KEPs to like discuss that are in the current cycle, also in hopes of maybe getting new folks like helping out with implementation of these KEPs, because there is always help needed in at least testing. So maybe folks can get started there. So another thing to make that happen is that we need to get KEPs suggested early on, so that we can hopefully try and contact the author and like get them on the call if at all like time zone permits. So that's one thing. Let's see if we can like try and make that happen next time. So next one will be 15th September. Yeah.
So I think that's a great idea. I think that's what Bims and I originally had in mind too, was during enhancements early period, going through like what's on the tracking sheet. And once we pick those KEPs, we can send reminder emails, and like if it's a SIG storage KEP, we can email SIG storage, be like, hey, we're going to be doing a KEP reading of this.
Nice.
Hopefully get some other folks involved too.
Awesome. Let me write that down. So like other than Yuvraj, has anyone else on the call like been an author I think Eddie already has been an author for a few KEPs. So other than that, anyone? I haven't been an author myself. So also, Yuvraj. So for this KEP to like get merged, what was it like? So I'm assuming like API changes and the PRR review. So those typically are rigorous, right? So how was that like going through, and like, so like any general tips and form if you're making an API change, how should you approach that in
So
general?
when it comes to API change, of course, having all the tests in place is very important for a PR to merge, because not only because it tests your stability, but also it establishes contract for having backward compatibility with for like N-1 and -2 versions. So that's one thing, right? So if and one thing to keep in mind is, especially when it came to this KEP, was the API that you are talking to is not, people don't not only use it through kubectl, but through other forms as well. So when you add all these tests, you just adding kubectl end-to-end tests is not enough. You have to add like just API based tests and so on. So that's important. And another thing that people should definitely focus on is when you're making API changes, try to start like get your PR up and try to get feedback very early, because the folks that review the API changes are generally a little occupied, and it would be nice if you give them a lot of time to be able to review your PRs, because they are pretty busy folks. The same goes with other parts of other SIGs as well. So in general, get your PRs up early, and then even a work and try to get feedback early so that you can address it. Don't delay it till the last week to get your KEP merged.
Yeah, and we are coming up on enhancements freeze.
Yeah.
And I have KEPs I need to get finished in too. So
Has CLI like opted in KEPs yet, or is it yet to do it?
no, we're going to talk about it this week, whatever our next meeting is. I think we have a couple debug KEPs that are lingering and waiting to get in. I have my delete KEP that I need to get pushed in. I built a demo for it on Friday. I have to record that and send an email out. We had a couple other ones, but I don't think they're going to make 123. What's interesting, and I think we need to talk about this as a project again, is we've shortened the KEP opt-in window, but we've extended the extension window. So we've made it so that it's still a decent amount of time, but the open, opt-in is like week 3 of the release already. And the extension window doesn't end for at least another 3 to 4 weeks after that. So I don't know. I think there needs to be more of a balance between the cutoff and the extension. I think we have to go further into the other direction again, but that's a conversation for SIG release.
Yeah. I'm hoping so I think this is the second release which is on the elongated cadence. So I'm hoping they'll collect some feedback and work with just like SIGs in general, because I feel like everyone will have a lot of changes to go through, and we'll probably get not a few, but like a lot of good feedback points to work with. So I'm hoping that helps next release cycle, if not this one.
Yeah, I think we saw last release, and we'll see it again this release. The majority of KEPs are going to come in through the extension window. They're not going to come in through the open opt-in window. So. Do we want to pick one of these or 2 of these to queue up for next time, and then we can call it?
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
Any of these jump out to anyone in particular?
Does this have a PRN already?
We can also just walk down the list. Secret protection sounds kind of cool.
I think we've discussed that one.
Oh, you have?
in
Awesome.
one of the meetings. Yeah. But wait, which one is secret protection again in this? Oh, there you go. This is 6 storage, right?
What's the newest one on this list? That would be always on or reclaim policy.
Okay, I don't think we've discussed this one. We've discussed something related, but not sure if it's we can take this up for next time. Secret protection. Let me just have that in.
We could grab that one and see some of the other SIGs that come in, see if we can get some other SIG.
Yep. I'm hoping like by next week we should probably have more caps in this sheet. So probably a CLI cap if you have any in mind in particular.
Okay, I will. That's what I'm working on after this. I'm gonna finish my cap.
Awesome. Where's the, yeah, there you go.
Cool. I'm gonna drop. Thanks, team. I'll see you all next week. And Mata, we can talk next week if you want to pick the second one.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Thanks for running.
Yep. So I'm guessing we can call this meeting. Yeah. Sorry, my laptop glitched for a second there. So yeah, so thanks so much for joining. See you folks next time. And please just like keep an eye on the tracking sheet. If anything pops up, add it to the agenda and we can discuss it further. And we can contact the authors as well. So.